Hey everyone, Dr. Nicola Ducharme here. I wanted to talk a little bit today about your adrenal glands and how we can help them in times of stress. So our adrenal glands are our stress management centers. And when there is prolonged stress, whether it be physical stress or mental emotional stress, our adrenals really take a hit. And one of the big things that they do is produce cortisol. Cortisol we call our stress hormone. And having too much cortisol or too little cortisol are sort of both not ideal scenarios. So we want to keep our adrenals as well supported as possible so that they can stay healthy and stay balanced and not be on cortisol overload the whole time, not get depleted, and not get inconsistencies in the sort of natural circadian rhythm that might make it harder to have energy during the day, but then, you know, that spikes at night and it's harder to settle down and go to sleep. So there are some simple things that you can do to help your adrenals. So obviously in the period that we're in right now, it's a very stressful time. It's a very unusual time, but some very simple things to think about. So first I want to talk to you about diet. So if you're going for long periods of time without eating, that actually puts more strain on the adrenal glands. So the best thing you can do nutrition-wise is eat small amounts more frequently. And ideally, you'd get some protein. Every time you eat, you get some protein because the protein also helps to balance insulin levels. And if your blood sugar gets, wacky, gets dysregulated, insulin's your short-term, insulin and glucagon are the hormones that are your short-term bailout, but cortisol is going to be your longer-term bailout, right? So cortisol still has to work to keep your blood sugar balanced if you're not eating regularly. So small amounts, more consistently. I know some of us chasing kids around the house all day, or it's just a different environment right now. So schedules are different, routines are different. So just really try and be very deliberate about the nutrition and about having good snacks and like raw nuts and seeds and things like that that contain the proteins and the healthy fats. So that's number one. Sleep patterns are incredibly important for cortisol. Now, there are people who have cortisol spikes at night, like their cortisol gets too high at night and that interferes with sleep. And there are things that we can do to try and help regulate that as well. But generally speaking, the more sleep you can get before midnight even, the better that is for your adrenals, because your body does sort of shut down and go into rest and repair mode overnight. So trying to get to bed still in a reasonable time. And again, routines are off. I've got friends who are sitting up, binge watching shows on Netflix till 1 a.m. because they can sleep in the morning. It's just different. But try to stick to your sleep pattern as much as possible. And that will help your adrenals as well. So the third thing then I would say is really important is finding a way to manage stress. And this is going to look different for everybody. So for some people, meditation is their way to get into that sort of parasympathetic state, that rest and digest kind of state. Because if your adrenals are on overdrive and you're just constantly in sympathetic mode, you're in fight or flight mode all the time, your body can't heal and it can't sort of do its repair work. So that's one of the problems. When we're under chronic stress, we tend to get like our nervous system gets stuck in that fight or flight kind of response. And we get stuck there. And we have to, again, be very deliberate about getting unstuck. And, so beyond getting through the day and just sort of falling into bed exhausted, which is one way to do it, and different tools and techniques to really try and rest, to calm our bodies, to get into that parasympathetic state, to balance the cortisol, to calm the adrenals, put it all together. So meditation is one that is always given as an example. I personally am terrible at meditation. I've tried so many times in my life to get in the pattern and just don't. Yoga, taking walks outside, we can still do that, breathe in the fresh air, get sunshine. Some people it's journaling, prayer, whatever it is. Tapping is another one, EFT, emotional freedom technique. And I've got a special guest coming up in the next week or two to teach you that, which is very exciting. So find what works for you. And if you're not, the meditation doesn't fit for you like it doesn't for me, then find something else. There's so many online things right now too to sort of teach you yoga and just all kinds of stuff you can do at home. So watching the nutrition, obviously staying hydrated, not drinking coffee all day long because caffeine just stresses the adrenals as well. Staying hydrated, eating well, eating regularly, and really making a point to get as much sleep before midnight as possible. So there are some sort of lifestyle things. In terms of what else can you do for your adrenals, there are a couple of nutrients that are really valuable. Ones that come to mind immediately are like B5, B6. Vitamin C is very good for the adrenals as well. And obviously vitamin C is very good for the immune system. So that's a good one to incorporate right now. But B5 and B6 are great for supporting the adrenals, but also from a nervous system standpoint, all the B vitamins are helpful because our nervous system chews through more B vitamins when we're under stress. So some of those nutrients are good. The other thing I use a lot is herbs, and I use a lot of more balancing herbs, what we call adaptogenic. And what that means is if your cortisol levels are low, it will help to bring them up. If they're high, it will help to bring them down. They're just balancing and regulating kind of herbs. And so, ashwagandha is a favorite one here. Holy basil, rhodiola, and some of the ginsengs are really good for the adrenals too. There are a couple of different types of ginseng. I would say Eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng, is a really good, nice balancing herb. Korean ginseng or Panax ginseng is a little bit more stimulating. So you have to watch that a little bit more carefully. Licorice is also a really good adrenal herb. Again, people who have high blood pressure have to be a little bit more careful there. Long-term use of licorice can increase blood pressure. But there are some great balancing herbs. I've got a great formula called Dr. Nicola's Adrenal Tonic that is a combination of more adaptogenic herbs. And that's been great for helping people just kind of get that energy and help people's adrenals through this whole thing. The other thing just to mention, like I said, if you're having cortisol spikes at night, and I'll talk in a little bit in a couple of minutes here about how I like to evaluate adrenals other than just, feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm under stress. My adrenals must be like dying right now. But the other thing to remember is there's a nutrient or a substance called phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine can help to suppress elevated cortisol. Okay, so if somebody's wanting to do adrenal support but hasn't done adrenal testing, then the adaptogenic herbs are a good place to start because they're safe. You don't have to worry too much about, do I have high levels or low levels? So that's always a good middle ground. If you know that you have elevated cortisol, and no matter what time of day, but especially at night because it interferes with sleep, phosphatidylserine can be helpful to just really try and dampen that and bring that down. And that can be helpful for allowing people to go to sleep. There's a great formula called Cortisol Manager that I really like for that, that has some herbs in it and some nutrients and some phosphatidylserine. So that's what I use if I have people with high cortisol and they need to bring it down. Faith, I see your question about, yes, I will definitely put the adrenal supplement. Safe while nursing, I typically stay away from most of those during nursing. It depends a lot on how old the child is too. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday who was nursing a 3-year-old. That's going to have a very different kind of impression to someone who's nursing a 3-week-old. So generally speaking, though, those kinds of herbs, especially with licorice and things like that, we don't give while pregnant or breastfeeding. So then finally, just to talk a little bit about the evaluation for cortisol. And again, in this time we're in now, all on quarantine and everything else, I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say our adrenals are under pressure and under stress. So it's a given. Like, be kind to your adrenals, you know, do follow some of these recommendations. I think that's just a good sort of sensible idea, especially with the diet and the lifestyle factors. When I do want to do adrenal testing in my patients, what I do is cortisol testing through saliva. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned, cortisol does have like a circadian rhythm. So it's supposed to start high in the morning and then gradually fall throughout the day and then be lower at night, so the immune system can kick up and do its housekeeping, and then you get that sort of rest and repair kind of action overnight while you're sleeping. And that's part of the reason sleep quality is such an important thing. But so some people may have cortisol in the morning that looks just fine. It's right in the middle of range. It's totally normal. That's great. But then it may drop low at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's when they get their real energy crash. But then it may spike up at night and then they can't sleep. So they're exhausted. You know, they wake up okay in the morning, exhausted by mid-afternoon, can't sleep at night. Like, there's a whole cycle. So the saliva test is a sample morning, noon, afternoon, and night. And it's a saliva test. You can do it at home, send it in so you don't have to go to a lab. And that's what I use with my patients for that evaluation. But I think what I'm really trying to get across today is just, you know, recognize that this is a stressful time. And when you are under more stress, the more you can do to help your adrenals and be kind to your adrenals, your body will thank you for that. So I hope that was helpful for you. And I will be back next week with more information for you.